Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to Hard Left Turn. You should be sitting down right now, or standing, or driving, or whatever you're doing. You should be occupied in another activity and then distracted by this activity. And this activity should be, it came from the Workbench, Volume 22, Episode 3. I want to say 3. But it's not, because apparently I have a burgeoning fixation thing where I get started on something and I have to finish that thing. So something came up. Let's say something came up. So instead, for this afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, it came from the Workbench Volume 2. We are up to Episode 9. And I would have to say that of all it came from the Workbench series, this one has to have been getting updates the furthest apart. Not just the furthest apart, but has gone through the most significant changes over its history. There's a thumbnail. You already know who's in it. But it came from the Workbench Volume 2. Episode 9 is our boy. Our big tall boy. It's Blue Sky High. And what I did is I did what I do. And Blue Sky High has been on MST stock rails, and he has been on LCG chassis version 1, and then LCG version 2, and then LCG version 3, and then on a hybridized, weird-looking towers on stock element rails, and now he is on what I am hoping, sincerely hoping, will be his final chassis. Because I think Susan still has it. Okay. I'm not 100% sure on this camera's ability to focus at this distance, but okay. Do you see that right there? You see that right there? Ordinarily, I make a chassis fairly simply. I don't try to do too much flourish. Like, they get a little bit of an organic feel because I'm kind of shaping them to what I want them to be. And I thought Blue Sky High has gone through too many chassis. So we're going to try to do something nice. We're going to get him something pretty. And to do that, I have to use these high-speed cutters for aluminum. So this isn't the exact one. The exact one is still clamped in the tool, but they have these big, deep-cut flutes, and you run them at really high speed. And what they do is they shave off little pieces of aluminum that are like that. They're like little sharp-edged needles, and they are everywhere. When you use a file, it's mostly dust, but I had to rough out a lot of what's under the body using these high-speed, these are only like 6 flutes, so they make these razor blades that just, like, I was pulling them out of my arms, out of my feet, out of my legs. Those things are gnarly. Yes, I know. Wear gloves, wear goggles, don't walk around barefoot. Don't tell me what to do. So I deal with what I deal with. But that's my excuse for not making a typical chassis as, let's say, as ornate as Blue Sky High. So I swapped his chassis over, and what I wanted to do was maintain the wheelbase. But in maintaining the wheelbase, I also wanted to move the body back a little bit. I think I incidentally moved it back too far. It's well back now. I don't think it looks super weird. It looks like it's got a little layback to it. I got ahead of myself. So I think the rails came up pretty nice. I'm not displeased with the rails at all. So here is Blue Sky High's hopefully final iteration. And I had to fabricate new upper links as I incorporated new link positions. I trimmed the skid down in order to make the center a little smaller. His ground clearance, he sits a little bit lower than he did before. But his ground clearance is even more. Like, he's got a lot. I think it was 76 when I measured it. 72 millimeters at the skid because I had to change the shocks more than once as he had just gotten a shock swap as it was to the Element factory teams, and no spring that I could put on them felt soft enough. And atop that, they seemed a little bit too long. You can see where some of the paint is scraped off, and I had them all the way in the top holes. So ordinarily, I'm all the way in the bottom hole. So I was like, oh, I'll just put big bores on there, and then we'll be in a better place. And sure enough, 5 millimeters shorter on a 2660. So this is an 85 millimeter shock, and if anything, he has too much flex at the corners. We're talking 5 inches or so, which is where he had where he had peaked out at. Now, I also added too many link adjustment positions. So many. And tuning four-wheel steer geometry is completely different from tuning just regular front steer geometry. So I don't know if what's on here is going to work. We may end up just going back. I made sure that they're still here, and I left the stock positions. I don't have to change the length of the upper link too much to get it into this position. The front, I will have to fabricate new front links. The camber, the caster gain in the front is pretty aggressive. What's weird is there's no axle swing. The pinion just pivots like that. So it almost looks like the pinion doesn't move through the whole suspension stroke. The pinion just angles up and down like that. The rear behaves very differently. I don't know if any of this is going to work. Now, luckily, the chassis won't be a loss because I have suspension adjustment positions. Speaking of the suspension again, these are Element SE springs down here on the bottom. These are white band, which are 1.3 pounds an inch. And the rear actually still feels a little slow. He might be able to go to greens, which are 0.8 or 0.9, something like that. I didn't expect to have to spring it down this much. And I should also mention, this is a Flash Hobby AM32 here. I thought it was just a run-of-the-mill, no-name AM32 that's been in there. But it's the Flash Hobby AM32, the one that only beeps once when you power it up. It doesn't go through the power cycle tones. It seems to be working just fine. It's very quiet and very smooth. Almost no outrunner sound to it at all. And we did a swap-a-swap-a-roo. He is now running the Three Brothers Yellow Jacket because it's very little, and it's not going to pull that kind of amps that the big boy was pulling. And the 3542 that was in there is now in Diablo. Now, I have not driven him at all. It hasn't even been outside. I had to replace the bumper because I kept moving the battery mount back, and we are still just... you see, I don't even have anything in the second hole. So when I scooched it, I basically scooched the whole rig forward, but the chassis stayed in the same place, if that makes any sense. All of the things moved forward and the chassis just stayed where it was. Or alternately, everything stayed where it was and the chassis slid backwards. The body mounts seem to fit okay. I don't have chassis braces in place yet, but I learned that thing where, a tube is stronger than a rod because it has twice the surface area. So when you put big cutouts, this is basically like a TVP chassis now. It's super stiff. You can barely squeeze it in, and there's no upper support on this front or rear. I would expect to be able to collapse that. I can't squeeze it in. You can watch the top of that shock tower move a millimeter. So, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. I've got the rear effectively castered zero. The axle is pretty much just straight up and down, and you can see the angle on the shock to get the pinion angle. I got the pinion angle pretty much exactly where I wanted it. But I don't know. From bench setup, it seems like it's where I want to be. But for rock setup, I don't know. I mean, we have got... There's a hair's breadth in there. It is fresh off the laptop. because I wanted to make sure all the stuff was turned off, because no matter what ESC I've had this thing hooked up to, and it's been hooked up to 3 different ESCs at this point, it never feels really like, and I know it's very small, and ordinarily if an Outrunner is powered up, you can't, like, there's more resistance to that roll like that. The caster gain in the front. I don't know how that's going to work. So this could be so simple as we go out there and I drive it around and I say, oh, well, I need to move a shock position, or I need to do this. Or, wow, we lucked out and it's surprisingly pretty good. But I think more likely we're going to be a flailing and hopefully not a wailing, because make one change at a time. So in lieu of that, I made like all of them. All of the link positions are different. Front and rear caster are different. It's a different motor. The body sits differently. Everything is just a little bit different. And I made no changes to the gearbox or the axles. It's all just geometry changes. But instead of one geometry change, we made some effort to do all geometry changes. And I believe I had mentioned in one video, I can't remember which one or when or where, that there was that chance that he was going to, it was the Wheelin' Wednesday, that there was a chance that his bumper was going to be changed. This is by no means the permanent bumper. I don't guarantee this is the permanent bumper. I kind of feel more comfortable when Blue Sky High has a welded bumper. But at the same time, I'm not mad at this. I'd rather it be black. Diablo has the black one. I might just put the silver one on Diablo and put the black one on here. Hang some, put some shackles on it, because it's really tight in on this. Because I had to move the bumper mount so far forward to clear the battery. And like I say, I moved the battery back probably close to an inch. So I don't know how that is going to affect the handling either. Our clearances on steer, see, this is why I wanted to move it back. So we should be getting, I mean, we're still augering in right there. We'll see it better on this side. Like, I have often said, and I reiterate, that the Rupture is not a tire to run with fenders. It just isn't. It's too big. Would this guy be more comfortable and more capable on 475s? Well, I mean, there's a set of tusks on Canyon inserts right here. So is there a chance that in this installment or the next, we're going to see this guy drop down to a smaller tire? I absolutely am not ruling that out. We can try Canyon Trails. We can try some deep woods, any number of things. And it seems insane even now saying it myself to say, oh yeah, let's take the Ruptures off and try something else. But I think he's running really deep offset. Yeah. These deeps can go on with no modification, because he's running about that exact same amount of offset. So we're going to take the bag now. And this was not planned out in advance. There's the wheel wrench. We will take the other wrench so that we can at least make some shock position changes if need be. So we got the bag, we got the radio. We will grab the big camera, and we will head outside and we will take this guy through his paces out there, and we'll see what have we done. Like, I'll be able to tell pretty early on what we've done to the available forward drive. So we're kind of just going to do a little impromptu run through the usual testing points to see. Like, I feel like as much as I hate to say it, much as I hate to both see it and say it, I think we're going to have taken a little bit of his abilities away. I think. I don't know if the geometry changes are going to, they're going to be impactful. Oh, don't get me wrong there. But I don't know if they're going to be improvements. That's what I'm really worried about. So honestly, yes, that's a good suggestion, people in the yelling at their screen of choice right now. We're just going to take him right back to Deadline, and I'm going to run through a little bit of the first part of Deadline at least, and see how he feels. It should be better. I want him to be better. I want him to be at the very least the same. But the glass, man, the glass is perpetually half empty. So we hope for the best and we prepare for the worst. Let me begin by saying this. The drive out back was a much longer one than is typical because, usually we stop I'm thumbing over my shoulder. We stop way back over there. He feels like he's got a ton of steering. The suspension seems appropriately compliant. This is just big bores on the SE whites with our usual 300 CST. So the suspension in that regard has not changed appreciably. Yeah, see, there it is right there. We can hear it, right? It's still moving, but when I give it the amount, like right there, I hope the directionality of the microphone's picking it up. And I give you my assurances. It's like there's no torque coming out of that motor. And that motor was not working in Diablo anymore at all. Because relatively speaking, Blue Sky High is a flyweight compared to what Diablo is weighing now. He feels, honestly, he feels really good. Almost more nimble is how I would phrase it. The more I see that bumper, I don't know, the more I kind of like it. I don't even mind this. No, I'd still prefer it in black. I feel like I'm bereft of torque. I'm at like 50% throttle right now. 60, 70. I'm wide open. What is that? So now we have tried, okay, all right. Maybe the geometry is okay. We're gonna have to see some forward drive stuff because as it sits right now, how is that on? Like that, what is that? But it doesn't just feel like I have less power. It feels like I have no power. I mean, I can try a quick recalibrate. Try recalibrating the trigger. I don't outright see how that would make a change, but like nothing. Okay, as soon as I get past this, oh yeah, it is hitching bad. Stall protection is 100% off. Stuck rotor protection is off. He was way more punchy on double the motor that we're all pretty confident was drawing far too many amps for that ESC to manage. Now, we're gonna hit some more. I want to see right here. Look at this. Is this guy now right there? We should be able to pull. I can't get up that. I'm at like 80% throttle. All I can assume is that motor is getting really hot, and I can't tell. Again, I can't make this judgment. Is it the speed control or is it the motor? Well, we've got some options. I rescind that. We don't have some options. We have the options. This thing feels amazing till it gets loaded, then we let it go, and then we have a little bit, and then we let it go, and then we have a little bit. So, this leads me to believe, oh my goodness, his self-righting is now top 2%. And then, oh, he's got the drive. But it's like, this is like we have multiple cylinders misfiring. And the motor is warm, but not hot. So I have to assume this right here, where I have to, like, we have enough power, right? It's making enough. It's just like the speed control is running out of power when we get bound up. Is the speed control not feeding the motor enough? Is the motor being weird? I don't know. So at the very least, I am going to get over here. We'll get to right here before we have to do the pull over here. Yeah, even right there. I'm going like this on the throttle. Like your curb idle adjustment in your car is gone, and you get that thing that Hondas would do where they go, and you would have to constantly keep your foot on the gas so you didn't stall at every stoplight. That's what it feels like I'm driving. So we'll try a recalibrate. I might even try doing a throttle channel reverse. And I'll see if I can't get this thing to feel a little less stally. And after that, we're going to have to start changing stuff. I don't see any other options. Much like the motor, the speed control, warm but not hot. And all I can think is that we're starving. I did think of another thing to try, which is, does he need 4S? Is it that this motor, we're just not feeding it enough volts? We might not be feeding it enough volts. And these servos can handle 4S, so that speed control can handle 4S. So we're gonna try here a little Columbus Slick Rock. This is after recalibration. Okay, that does feel, that feels better. But we didn't get at any point where we were really loading it up. Okay, that feels 1,000% better. Oh, this would actually make my day. It is early, and it would be enough. Because if it is literally the simplest thing, I did have to open up the box that everything lives in and reverse the motor wires, because I tried recalibrating it and it didn't feel any different. So I reversed the throttle channel, which of course then makes them go backwards. So then I had to switch the wires on the motor. That's about the drag brake I've come to expect from this. It's not quite the drag brake I would like. Let's see, right here. That's not terrible. We are talking about a very low power speed control. Honestly, I thought his forward drive was going to be more severely impacted than this. Well, okay. And by that, I'm not making an attempt to imply that his handling behavior before felt dead or dull or anything. He just feels so much more nimble now. Oh, and there we go. There it is. Oh, it's like having 95% drag brake. There it is. Damn it. Okay. So what is the easiest thing we can do here? The easiest thing I can do is I can trundle back to where we started. I can grab that 4S pack that's sitting on the bench. We can throw it in here, and we see how this thing feels on 4S. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to put 4S in there and see how it feels. If that doesn't work, I've got a Rhino. I've got a Rhino that's not hooked up to anything. And hooking that up and calibrating it. So it won't be performance optimized, like I won't have set all the settings in the software, in the BL Heli. But is amp starvation? Is that what the problem is? Is that where we're sitting? So we'll start with a 4S, and if that doesn't work, we'll zip tie a Rhino on there and see if that makes it any better. 4S installed. I've still got the 3S in my pocket, and if we're going to make the trip, we might as well turn this into the Alfresco mechanics shop. I have brought, let me dig through here, the Flash Hobby, what is it, 3530? 3530 1700 kV that I was never impressed with in Misdirection. Just didn't like it. She got a new motor and she improved. But hey, we don't know. We have Daphne's original 1450 kV drone motor that I had to manufacture the center shaft because I wasn't paying attention. I bought the wrong kind of drone motor, where instead of the wires being over here, the wires were over here. So I made a shaft and basically turned the motor around, so this motor is actually running backwards, basically. It still works. I have grabbed a Rhino. So we've got a Rhino. We are gonna, first we're gonna try throwing volts at it. Then we're gonna try throwing amps at it. No. Before we put the Rhino in, if I've got to open it up anyway, we're gonna hook up, let's just go with Daphne's old 1450 and see how that does on this. I'm hoping that will isolate whether or not this speed control is the problem, because, oh, well, we got to get it bound up though. It's weird. Like we've lost it. There we go. I was gonna say we'd lost a fair bit of forward drive inexplicably. Ooh, that reverse is a little salty. I'd have to curve some of that out. There it is. Yeah, same thing. It's like it's fuel starved. It's like it's misfiring. It's not great, and I'm not gonna live with it. What did I say? We'll put the 1450 on it, and that will tell us whether or not the yellow jacket is the problem. If it still does it, it's the speed control, yeah? 3S back in, not even bothering to put the body on. My confidence level is so low that I just assume that it's this ESC. It's like, it's always been that weirdness where you have to change those numbers in the settings, yet I have 2 more of these and they work pretty much perfectly, so I don't know, maybe I got a bad one. Well, okay. Have a drag brake. Oh, look, drag brake. All right, this is looking less good for the yellow jacket. Oh, this is looking really bad for the yellow jacket. Well, I've never, I don't know if I've ever been happier to be wrong. This has more, certainly more forward drive on 3S than the yellow jacket was showing on 4S. And I'm getting the wheel slip, but I'm not getting any throttle hesitation at all. That was, as a matter of fact, that was pretty much drag brake. It started to go down and I let off and it just went, you know, end over end. And a couple non-motor related notes. The battery, wait, nope. I thought for sure right here. Well, let's just go to the staircase. So the battery tray is still too far forward. At certain points of compression, so there's a little hesitation here, but what that hesitation is it almost feels brushed motor-like now, but we're getting, like, that's just full drag brake now. Like right that little right here. But if I give it more, it picks up. Gonna have to 4-wheel steer out of this. Uh-oh, here we go. So it feels a little underpowered. Right there. Got to give it a little more, right? Oh. Where do we think that was from? How bad do we think that was? The hat gear and the spur gear are plastic. Should probably take a look at that, yeah? Maybe you just slipped a little. I mean, no, that's, come on. That's not how that works. I mean, there's some days, you know, the pendulum has got to swing both ways. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. There is a microscopic hesitation when it'll first hit something steep. I do have four-wheel steer, don't I? See if we can crab across this. The hesitation is not bad enough that I'm like, I can no longer position myself. I see that front fender just catching. It does feel very brushed though. It feels better than before. And I looked, and all I can think is it must have just flexed something, because there are no teeth in the front. I don't think it's going to do anything in the middle. If we get some teeth fouling, it's for sure going to be on that intermediate gear, what I call the hat gear that goes between the pinion and the spur. Wait, was it just rupture on plastic? Also, passenger front shock is just barfing its guts out. It was barfing its guts out when I installed it yesterday, so I took it apart, I put a new bladder in it, I put it back together, and it's still barfing its guts out. I don't know if it's got like a burr on the threads or something, and it's just cutting the bladders as I put them in, but it's leaked probably half of its oil out at this point. There's oil all over the bench over there. I looked down at my hand, I was covered in oil. So what was my big worry? Geometry. What have I really not fiddled with at all? Geometry. The drivetrain is giving me fits. Now, yeah, sitting right over there on the bench is a Rhino. But in general, I look for another solution rather than put a big 10 amp BEC fitted speed control into a rig that has two big direct power servos. So we're not using that 10 amp for anything. And there are rigs out there that could benefit from having that 10 amp. I'm trying to go in as high as I can. I don't know which way to turn that rear axle to try to settle that down. Yeah, I'm getting so much rub in the rear. If we want to maintain this, that hesitation is so much better than it was, but it's still kind of driving me nuts. Let's see the rupture here. Well, I mean, they're right over there in the bag. It would take far less time to just slap tusks on it than to do anything else we've done today. So, I want to see here. How's that transfer going to go? Oh, that's using your four-wheel steer. Go this way, try to power it back down. Okay, that's an iffy proposition right there. Try to reposition a little bit. Yeah, that tire. Okay, so we've got the tire binding up on the fender in the back, and then we've got the battery tray. It actually has a little black along the top edge of it where it's scraping paint off the inside of the body. So that's definitely too close to tolerance there. But our drag rate, I got to stop dwelling. I'm just going to try to power out of this and see if we flip out. I've got to, or we can learn how to use four-wheel steer and then get out of it easily. So I've got to stop dwelling on that little bit of hesitation to the motor and just pretend that it's brushed. Put myself in the mindset of brushed and go from there, because it feels very brushed otherwise. It doesn't really, this is an outrunner setup, and I know I've said this about someone else, but I've called them like the least outrunner setups. The suspension honestly feels good, even with that shock with all of its guts barfed out. It doesn't seem like, he still looks like he's so crazy high, But performance-wise, aside from the powertrain whatevers, there's a part of me that's like, grab an unused 1080 and a brush motor and put it in there and see where you end up. And replacing an Outrunner with a brush motor seems crazy. And honestly, the only reason I haven't done it is because I guarantee you I don't have a 1080 that has 2 JST plugs to plug 2 servos into. I don't have that. Here's the problem. We hope for greatness or we hope for terrible. It's not great. I can't call it great. It's not blasting me off of my bucket chair. It's also not terrible. It's at 90. He's at 95%, and starting at 95% is almost frustrating because we know that it's just chasing some little thing. Daphne's old heart, the old 1450, seems great in here. So I don't know, maybe that speed control just doesn't quite make the amps. I don't know. So in exchange for not knowing, let's just throw Tusks on here and see what it looks like. Man, blue and gold. Is or is not blue and gold a sweet combo? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, this is obviously Canyon softs in the front, Canyon mediums in the rear. Want to see that? There's that little hesitation. I'm dealing with it. I'm working around it. Nope. Okay. We can't blame most four-wheel steer flops on anything except the person who is inadequately trying to use four-wheel steer. It gets me into more trouble than it gets me out of. Yeah, this feels super planted. See, I think that's geometry. I think that big wheel stand, but oh, I had it. I had it. I absolutely had that and four-wheeled steered myself out of it again. All right. He just looks, oh, come on. He just looks so high. Yeah, good old Tuskies. And this set of Tusks is super light. Way lighter than we had before. We know why I put these tires on here, right? Because I need to think about something else. I need to stop dwelling on that ESC motor combo. Is the best option probably to put that Rhino in there? Probably. How high is his body? Could I get some sides on there and it not look funny? I don't know. I think the chassis still comes down below the body a good ways. Yeah, right there. Right there. That's what we're trying to tune out. That will definitely give me something alternative to focus on other than our lack of power issues. He's landing on his wheels pretty well. Let's just keep punishing him on the side hill because punishing him on the side hill is punishing myself. Is it better? I don't even know. I think it looks better with the new chassis. It actually drives really nice. And then there's just something. There is that last 5% in every... Oh, also, let's not forget that when he's got that peg leg way up in the air, that's the shock that has no oil in it that I can't figure out why it's barfing its guts out. When I picked him up this morning, there was a pool on the bench. How does oil leak out of the top of a shock that's not mounted upside down? Oh God, if these were mounted upside down, that shock would be completely empty at this point. And it has a brand new bladder on it, and it's leaking as bad as it did before. Saw that little snap? I managed to catch that little snap. I think I can get used to it. Oh, let's see Tusk forward drive. I mean, I am not averse to fitting Tusks to this at all. You can definitely see a point where they drop off a little bit, but I mean, with imperfect geometry, certainly imperfect geometry, he is doing more than okay. Tusks have quite the turning circle on them. His rough ground compliance is pretty great. And honestly, I think that brrr might have been Lexan. Boy, did it sound like gears. Oh, there's something else it could have been. It could have been me flirting with disaster even more than usual. The balance plug, we need to tuck that out of the way. I thought it might be drive shaft interference with the motor, because if you see, let me get it focused. There we go. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So that shouldn't happen too much. Like under flex, that's not going to happen. Look at the back of that shock. Just putting his guts out. And I have no idea. I don't know. The only thing, I'm trying to tuck this balance lead up out of the way. The only thing I can think to do is just take it apart and refill it and rebuild it again. Just the one shock. The other three are absolutely fine. Yeah, we've definitely got our work cut out for us, and I know what a lot of that work is, and I don't know what a lot of that work is. So here's what we'll say. I'm gonna make an effort. Okay, man, framing. I got to get a monitor system on this. So I'm gonna do what I know I need to do. I'm gonna move that battery tray back. I'm gonna fix that shock. I'm gonna do stuff like that. Make sure the screws are tightened down. Make sure everything's done up right. Everything's buttoned together correctly. We will see. I think we're gonna. Okay, no, I'm not gonna make that change. I'm gonna leave it to you. I'm gonna put this before the community of, okay, ruptures versus tusks. That's a tough one. The tusks clear the body in the new body position a lot better. I think I might still have to trim just a little bit off of the leading edge of the rear fender, or more likely the quarter panel really needs to get trimmed a little bit to clear the tire a little better. But when it comes to the powertrain, what are the suggestions? Do we keep going with the Flash Hobby AM32 in there, knowing that the little, like the strengths and the weaknesses of it's very small, it's very light. He's a very light boy relative to the rest of the fleet. Should I just struggle through on the ruptures? Now, because apparently he lost a significant amount of weight, an amount of weight that I could not have anticipated, I think now the inserts that are in the ruptures are genuinely too hard. Now, I am lazy by nature, so it would be much easier to just move the ruptures to somebody else that could use everybody here is pretty heavy. So I could put those ruptures into use without changing them at all. He could run these just like this. He's a little light on unsprung, but I can live with it. We've also got a lot of rims not in service, and I can put heavier rims on them. I could put brass rings on them. We have a lot of options. I'm more really concerned about the powertrain. Do we keep going? Do we try a brushed system in it? Do we put a 1080 and a big bore 5-slot in there? Like what do we do? I don't know. So I'm going to take the comments and the suggestions from you all in this one, and I'm going to apply those as I see fit, and we will find out what won out when we get to Volume 2, Episode 10. When we get to Episode 10, we'll have made the changes. And that will, and the beauty of that is it will allow me to step back, because I should be working on 22 right now, and I actually am. 22 inside right now. What the camera doesn't show, 22 is all over the bench. All over the bench. So I'm going to get back to work on that. And before I get back to work on that, I'm going to thank you for watching this one. I'm going to thank you for joining me in the canyon. I'm going to implore that you leave something in the comments with how do we steer the direction of Blue Sky High. And as I sit here and look at him in that light right there, who doesn't love blue and gold, man? He's pretty. And I like the chassis. I'm happy with how the chassis came out. I'm happy with how a lot came out. And now that I've offset my problems onto you, the powertrain issues, do I just Here's another one for all you considering. Do I just plunk a Fusion in him? I've got a Fusion 1200 sealed in the box. Do we just plunk a Fusion in him and really simplify his layout? Because he's running an, that one's kind of I'm leaning towards that one. I don't want to over-influence anybody, but I solder a pair of JSTs on that. We lose the whole box. He's running one of those caseless micro servos. We can clean him up, tighten him up if we just put a 1200 in there. And then we can deal with the outrunners elsewhere. Maybe that, I don't know. Any option is on the table. We can do Fusion, we can do brushed, we can do outrunner in various different configurations. Maybe I need a 3532. Maybe I need to try a 40 amp Rhino. Hit me up in the comments. And then after you do that, in between leaving that comment and in between when we meet again, please one and all, do your very best to have a good one, everybody. We will see you again very soon from the canyon. I thank you for all of your assistance, whether it be in the past or what's coming in the future. We look forward to seeing you again. And as I've taken what is Beverly Hillbillies, right? Blue Sky High and I say, y'all come back now, you hear?